I'm not sure I'm recordable.
What number two?
So first thing I did, like, eyes on everything. As long as I get through, whatever I get through.
My role is
But it's so the way that we've done he's my stepson.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you learn about?
Well, I think one of the chapters that really stuck with me was about So I guess that's how it changed me. Leading, but it's leading from serving. We lead.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's
All right, I've got a question for you guys. So for those of you who were able to meet with your team, by the way, if you have like your sign-in sheet, you can just come, make sure your name is on it somewhere, make sure you've signed in on that, and make sure your name is on it. You can just drop it off at the table up here. But I'd like to ask you guys a question. What was that process like for you in terms of thinking about discipleship in your context? What are some things that you discovered what are some topics that you guys talked about that you think might be really beneficial in your current context moving forward, or just maybe beneficial just for you to think about?
Accountability.
Thinking about accountability. Okay.
I realize my church doesn't realize what they do. Because we got to the question, what are our strengths? And one of the main ladies said, well, we don't have any. And I started naming, but you do this and this and this. And they were trying to rush through the meeting so that they could go fix something at somebody's a community member. I said, just that. And he said, well, we've already fixed 2 others today. They're retired, plumbing, kind of thing. I said, there you go. That's your strength, is your community. So they really need a pat on the back. They don't realize that the things they do are ministries. It's just
That's
what we
good.
do.
Yeah.
It's a ministry.
Yeah.
So that was.
So reframing how they see themselves. Yeah.
But sometimes semantics help.
Yes.
The labels are important.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
That's
Let's
what I
continue
was
to eliminate
able to
that.
say, well, that goes in this one on this grid that we have to out.
Yeah.
That's this type
Yeah.
of ministry.
That's good.
I think one of the things that we already knew, but it was just really good to talk about it and flesh it out, is that at least 2 of us on staff are fixers and doers. So how much of us trying to control everything because we think that we are trying to help people grow, but really are we getting in the way of people growing and discipling them?
That's good. That's good. And it's something that we're going to talk a little bit about that today when we talk about pastoral and congregational care, is what are we bringing into that? That is really important, kind of a self-reflection. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast this morning, big podcast listener, by the way. This one is called The Liberator by this consulting company, and their whole thing is that we're liberating people and helping them see themselves really as they are as leaders or whatever. And the podcast was talking about simplicity, scalability, and sustainability in an organization. And they talked about how simplicity is making sure that even a 13-year-old can understand it and then repeat it. And scalability is making sure that what you do does not depend on you. And that's exactly right. I was like, oh, I got to write that definition down. And yeah, and sustainability is that it's not just a one-hit wonder, but it can continue on past you. So that's good. It was a good one. I was taking lots of notes while I was supposed to be getting ready for this class, but it was great. Anything else that you guys that kind of came out of that time that was meaningful for you? Yes.
My home church does a lot of good things. They have a lot of good ideas about ministering to the community and that sort of thing. But what they became aware of is those things are not winning people for Christ. They're activities and they are good things, but they're not replenishing themselves. Those same people they're ministering to never darken the doors. Yeah. And so they're very concerned. I mean, that made them look at themselves rather than look at their programs. And the prayer group that I went to last Wednesday made me aware that we need to have activities that make people look and say, as he said, not so much look at everybody else, but look at me. What am I contributing?
Introspectively. That's good.
That reminds me of last class we talked about busy versus making progress.
Yes.
And that's just been sticking with me over these last couple of weeks about my own life. Just, am I busy or am I making progress? And that'd be helpful for me.
Yeah.
I used Jay's example of the meeting that they held that, everybody was all proud of themselves and then they realized it didn't serve the point. That's resonated a lot with me, and I use that at the meeting as an example of kind of some of the stuff that we do, where we're like, oh, look at all these, great things, but what is is it actually accomplishing a goal? Do we have goals for this? And then do we assess whether or not we met those goals? No, we just kind of do it and throw the event and then we did it. We did an event, yay, check mark. And so being strategic about it and thoughtful about it and then assessing afterwards is a big part of it. Because we have the same problem too, is that you have the ministries, but we're not working to cultivate disciples through the ministries. And so if you go in with the idea of cultivating disciples, of bringing people into church, if you know that that is your mission, then you have a different way of going about it and you have a different attitude going into it. And structuring it with the semantics like you're talking about is important to talk about it in those terms.
Yeah.
And so we talked about that, about how to convert our missions into actual going and getting cups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So it sounds like some of you guys had some conversations that are causing you to evaluate and to look introspectively and to look at what you do through a new lens. Which is something that we all constantly need to do. Just this week after teaching, the last class, Jay and I were talking about, hey, maybe we need to simplify our discipleship process. And maybe we need to look at some different things that we're doing. So we're in the process of thinking all of those things through as well. And I think we always need to be in an evaluative stance, or else we're going to get stuck. The minute we stop evaluating and stop looking introspectively, then we get stuck and we allow ourselves to get stuck. So the fact that you guys are open to having those conversations and asking those questions, man, you guys are moving in the right direction. And I love that. Yes.
I went about it just a little. What I did was come in and say, what is your vision? Do you have a vision for this area, for your body that you're in? And have them start praying for a week, and this will be the second week. And then I told them that whatever, if God placed something in their heart as a vision, something to put it down on paper, and we'd all put it together. And it didn't matter whether yours was different than mine, or that we, that may be something that God had placed in your heart, but we could come alongside to help fulfill what God has placed in your heart. But that's the way that I've been, and so hopefully this week we'll start getting. Already got two. Something.
Yeah. So you guys are kind of starting with the end in mind, thinking
right.
about
Well, see,
what is our vision and where is our destination.
In other words, you're stuck. You're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Where's the vision? Where was is your vision? But because I'm new, and what was your vision before? And has that changed? Is there a new vision? Is there a fresh vision now to go forward?
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you guys are initiating those conversations.
Well, now they're starting to write down what they want to go forward and do, and then put it together.
That's good. All right. Well, we're going to leave discipleship kind of on the shelf for today. We're never going to stop talking about it because that's what we do. It's who we are. And it's the thing that God has called us to do is to make disciples. But one of the things that we're going to talk about today is what do we do in terms of caring for our congregation? So pastoral and congregational care, that's really going to be our focus for today. Some of you guys earlier kind of asked for a clarification on the timeline, since you guys know, like, we're on the downhill slope of this class. Do you realize that? So I wanted to run through just organizationally really fast, kind of where we find ourselves in this process, and just make sure that you guys have the right dates and you know what's coming up. So our next class after today is going to be on February 2nd. Derek McAleer is going to be here. He is, what's Derek's title? The conference finance dude. I think that's his official title. So anyway, yeah, exactly. That's the one, whatever that is. But Derek's going to be here, and he's not going to talk about finances. He is actually going to talk about leadership, and so he and I will be co-leading that class, and it will be all about just general kind of leadership. And so that's February the 2nd. February the 16th Debbie Hudgens is going to be here. She is a lay leader at White Bluff United Methodist Church in Savannah. And she has done some consulting and leadership coaching and things like that in the past. And she is actually going to be here when we talk about culture, congregational culture, and assessing your culture and changing your culture, and how do you as a leader lead your church in the right direction, the culture that you want to see. And what's her name? Debbie Hudgens. And then on the 23rd, February will be a packed CLM month for us. On the 23rd, Suzanne Akins is going to be here, and she is on staff with Congregational Ministries with our conference, and she is going to help co-teach a little short class. It's an abbreviated class that is all about what does it mean to be a part of a connectional system. So what are the resources available to all of us as a part of that connectional system, and how do we plug into those and take advantage of those? So Suzanne will be here for that. So we have, after today, we have 3 more classes, and February the 23rd, that one ends at noon, so there will not be any lunch. So 3 more lunches together, including today, all right? And then on your original thing, there was a March 3rd date. Let me explain that March 3rd date. March 3rd, I just said as a, hey, turn in all your stuff kind of a date, okay? Here's the way we're gonna work that. I know that some of you guys have been able to move forward with your covenants and with your meetings and all of that kind of stuff, and you guys are rocking and rolling and moving on. By March the 3rd, you may be ready to turn in all your stuff and email me all the last of the stuff. Because at the last class, there are going to be a couple of things that you're going to have to do in order to finish up this process. So there'll be a couple more assignments at the very end. But if you are, one of the people in here that you hit a little snag and you've had some bumps in the road and things like that, and you're not able to get in all of your stuff, that's going to be okay. When you guys turn in all your stuff, then I will process all your paperwork and send it to the conference. So that's how we'll work it. If it takes you until the end of the summer, that's fine. Really, it's your timeline. It's not my timeline. So whenever you guys get in all of your assignments and your things, then we'll process all that paperwork and send it off to the powers that be, and whatever needs to happen next, which would be a great question for Derek. Whatever needs to happen next, we'll go ahead and happen. Okay, Diana.
So what are the other assignments aside from the 2 that we know about?
We're going to talk about one today. Yeah, so
Okay.
there are going to be a few more things that I give you guys in the next 3 classes. Yeah. Yeah, that one that is on the end of your table. We go through our time together. So far, those are the only 2, the sign-in sheet and then the mutual ministry team covenant. So if you turned in both of those, you're rocking and rolling.
So
All
just
right?
for
Yes.
Bible purposes.
Yes,
So the last class meeting is February 23rd.
yes,
Everything else we send you,
that's it.
can send you by PDF.
Yep.
So what are we supposed to have turned in right now?
Your covenant and the sign-in sheet from your last meeting. That's it. And I've got files for all of you guys, so I'm putting everything that you give me, I'm putting in a file. And at the end, I'll go through my checklist, and whoever's got all their stuff in, their paperwork gets forwarded to the next.
Do you want these today?
Yeah, you can stick it right here up on the table. Okay, so any other questions about what we have coming up in the next month or so? So it depends on your particular situation, I think. That's a great clarifying question. Somebody write that down on an index card for Derek. What happens at the end of this? And stick it up here, because it really depends on your conference and what they require as to what happens afterward. So we've got to figure out from our conference, okay, what is the next step? And hopefully Derek will be able to share that with us at the next meeting. So Jen, if you'll write that down, that would be very helpful. Yeah. Anything else?
I have one question.
Okay.
My mentor was changed, and then on my covenant, okay, it was my old mentor, and then the
They changed.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, so just make a note of that, that's totally fine. Okay? All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our time together today. And the way that we're gonna do this is we're actually going to look in the newspaper. So here's what I want you guys to do, is at the end of your table, there are a couple of newspapers. Just grab, everybody needs like 2 pages from the newspaper, okay? Probably not the classifieds, although maybe that could be a good thing to look at. But everybody just get a couple of pages from the newspaper. And you're also going to need a highlighter. Definitely not the Winn-Dixie hat. That's not gonna be your best bet, okay?
Molly was so interested to find out what we were gonna do in the
Oh, I
newspaper.
know, isn't it? Don't do the crossword puzzle, read the comics, that's not what we're looking at. Okay, so here's what I want you guys to do. I'm gonna give you just a couple of minutes. And what I'd like for you to do is look through your section of the newspaper. And with your highlighter, I'd like for you to highlight any examples of people who may benefit from some sort of pastoral care, okay? So just, I'll give you guys like 3 or 4 minutes, just read the paper and just highlight anybody that you think would benefit from some sort of pastoral care. All right, so take a moment and share with the people at your table, who are the people that you highlighted and what kind of pastoral care do you think they might benefit from? So talk about that with the people at your table just really quickly.
Well, they have a lot of time,
Well, I got. First time. She needs to break for I have one up here, NFL player, Tracy Walker. He needs prayer. Help him. Yeah. Tracy Walker.
I've got the local paper, right at the beginning of the materials about local setbacks that happen.
Yeah.
Bring up 1, 2, 3, this time, really all of it. Guidance. Then I had found ad right at the end about this here.
Let me ask you guys a question. How does it make you feel to identify all of these different types of needs? To look at just the scope of the needs that are out there? What does that stir up inside of you guys?
Excited,
Excited? In what way?
that there are so many opportunities, to help people, and you just have to identify them and go after them.
Yeah.
And see what God leads you.
It requires an awareness on our part, right? Yeah.
Fatigued.
Fatigued. Overwhelming
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes.
Makes me feel small because I'm just looking at this. God's looking at the whole world
Absolutely.
and knows everything that's going on in the whole world.
And has the answers for everything that's going on.
Not only does it tell me that I have a lot of growing to do to be able to address different kinds of It also reinforces the fact that we have to put processes in place to grow more leaders so that there are equipped disciples to handle various parts of ministry.
Back to that scalability, can't all depend on me. Yeah, that's good.
Makes me feel fortunate.
Fortunate in what way?
Well, because we complain so much.
Mm.
We really do. It makes you realize how blessed you
Puts things into perspective.
are.
I thought about the Apostle Paul. I must become all things to all men so that I might at least save some.
Mm.
Sometimes we don't intend to be part of things, but the circumstances pulls us out.
Yeah,
That makes us come
absolutely.
Sad. Do every day.
Mm.
I know it's because I'm just me with it.
We realize our own limitation in that, don't we? Yeah. Rebecca?
Identity. A lot of us have been these places. And so we've been there, done that, and that equips us to help others because of what we've been through.
Yeah.
And so the things that we failed at become the reason why we will be good ministers in certain areas.
For
So,
sure. Not in all areas.
so
But in
you
certain
can't do it
areas.
all.
That's right.
But then God plugs you in
Yeah.
where you can help that person.
Absolutely. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about what that looks like from a ministerial, pastoral kind of context. But the way that I thought we would start our time together today is just open up in a word of prayer. Because I think that when we talk about all of this and we realize that there are so many needs in our world today, we certainly do feel small because we're only one person. You know, we realize our limitations, but we need to remember that we're plugged in to the one who has all the answers. And there are others that are working alongside of us, that it's not just our responsibility to solve all of the problems and all of the needs in the world. So what I thought that we would do is start out with a word of prayer. And then what we'll do, I think we've prayed this way before in this group, but I'm going to say, Lord, hear our prayers. And at that point, I want you guys to pray for the people that you highlighted in your newspaper. So if you need to just read their names off of the newspaper, do that. If you just want to pray for their circumstances that you remember, do that. However you want to pray for these people, but we need to remember that prayer is by far one of the most powerful, beneficial things that we can do for people. So let's start there, and then we'll move into some other things, okay? Let's pray. Dear Lord Jesus, I thank you for the opportunity to come together today, God, and to learn how you would have us care and love other people. God, I ask that you will work in and through all that we learned today, that you will be present here in this place, that you will open our eyes and our ears, that we would focus on what you would have us to know. And God, at this time, we are humbled to be able to come before you and present these needs. Lord, hear our prayers.
Young couples. Nigel Steve Butler. Sidney Shelley. Jeremiah Shaw. President of the United States. Congress. James Edward Freeman.
James Cross.
Military. Yes, Harris. Our government.
They servants.
God, We ask all of these things in your precious and holy name. Amen. All right, so before we get started on all of the content, what I'd like for us to do is take a look at a scripture that I think is really crucial in helping to put what we're going to learn into perspective, to help us understand our role in what we're talking about today. And this scripture is 1 John 4:7-12. And this is what it says. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as a sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. As you guys listen to that and read that, what is our role? What is our ultimate responsibility in the way that we interact with others? We are to what? We are to love one another. Sometimes I think when we learn about all of this stuff, we who are caregiver kind of personalities, we who may tend to rescue other people, we say, oh, now your problems are my responsibility. And so it's my responsibility to come in and to take the newspaper, all of the situations that are here. That's my responsibility. No, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility, our responsibility, is to love other people. It's to love people, to love one another as we have been loved. Now, sometimes that love looks like walking through a really difficult time with somebody. Sometimes that love looks like going to the hospital or walking them through the death of a loved one, or, providing some support with them with whatever they're dealing with. Sometimes we're called to love in a very tangible way, but we're called to love. We're not called to rescue or to take on responsibility for situations that are not ours to deal with, to handle. And so as we move throughout this time today, I just want you guys to be aware that this is what we're talking about. We're talking about practical, tangible ways to love other people. Because we have been fully, completely loved, how do we offer that to other people in a way that meets their need during this particular time? Not how do you rescue people, okay? Not how do you take on more responsibility, personal responsibility for things that are not yours to take on in an unhealthy way, but how do you come in and practically, tangibly show the love of Christ to people who are hurting and struggling and in need? So Chance Ward is here today, and I am so excited that he is here with you guys. Chance is going to help co-lead this, and one of the things, as I was looking at all of the different sessions that we have, and I began to think, okay, who would be kind of experts in their field in these different areas? I think Chance does such a great job of ministering to and with people in a very pastoral way, and he does that in a way that demonstrates God's love and is very life-giving to the people that he is with. So what I'd like for Chance to do first is just kind of share with you, just so you can get to know Chance a little bit. I would like for him to share with you kind of his story into ministry just really quickly, because what I realized when I was thinking about Chance and his path to where he is right now, he's the pastor of Goshen United Methodist Church in Rincon. I thought he has sat in just about every single situation, ministry situation, where all of you guys are right now. And so he will be an incredible friend and resource for you guys. So I want him to just kind of share his story to where he is now, and then he's going to kind of kick us off with what we're going to talk about today. Okay?
Thank you, Ann. Good morning.
Morning.
How are y'all?
Good.
Good. So, as Ann mentioned, my name is Chance Ward. I'm the pastor at Goshen United Methodist Church up in Effingham County, Rankin. Just been in Effingham County for the last 27 years. Originally grew up in a little town south of Atlanta called Riverdale, which was kind of near the airport. I don't know if some of you've heard of Riverdale.
I live in Columbus, which is just south. of
All right,
Columbus.
so very good. So grew up there, left there, and I won't tell you when, a long time ago. Went to college at Georgia Southern, and while I was there, I met this young lady, and we started dating, and I thought, man, she's like a great wife, and she said yes, and we've been together for 26 years and called Effingham County home. Effingham County became home for us because I've not always been in ministry as profession, so to speak. I was a high school football coach and PE, driver's ed, help teacher, a little bit of middle school, Georgia history for a while. I did that for 15 years. So started teaching, coaching in 1992. And then around 2005, even actually a little bit before that, things kind of in my life started to change. I became really frustrated and displeased with what I was doing as a career. I enjoyed teaching, I enjoyed coaching, but it just wasn't life-giving. And so I began to really start to struggle with this call to ministry. I had no idea what that meant. Didn't really understand it. I was at Springfield Methodist Church at the time, just was a member of the church, and we received a new pastor and a change of appointments. And so through that, just began to kind of have some conversations with him like, hey, I'm kind of sensing this weird sense that I need to be doing something different. He goes, okay. Wait a minute, you're a pastor. Are you bored of that? I mean, he's like, no, you just keep working through that and we'll talk. So that kind of progressed for a little while, and then somewhere 2001, 2, I remember literally driving down the road, and it was like, for me, it was just, it was like a lightning bolt. This is what you need to do. You need to be a ministry. Okay, good. What direction? Can't tell you that. You just need to be a ministry. God, this is tough. So I began to have conversations with our pastor, and through the course of that, just kind of started doing a lot of what some of you are doing, exploring. So there's the exploring process, and kind of go through. Some of you may be familiar with what's called the candidacy process. And so as time rocked along, I still was coaching football, but I knew football was the one thing that was getting in the way of me really saying yes to God. And so I put the one thing that I thought God had put me on this earth to do, which was coach this game and be involved in young people's lives. God said, you need to get rid of that so you can do this. I'm like, I don't know how to do what you want me to do. I know how to do this. I can teach a game about a oblong shaped ball. I don't know anything about ministering to people. So again, back to my pastor, having the conversations. As time moved on, got out of football, out of coaching, but I was still teaching because I still needed to have an income, because I still needed to support my family. And there were many opportunities that came about as I'm trying to discern the direction God's leading me in for ministry. I had an opportunity to go on staff with FCA. I had some other opportunities. But in those, my wife, who is incredible, she's a school counselor, but she has tremendous wisdom and insight. She kind of understood my struggle and what I felt like I was called to do, which was to preach. And she always would come back and go, so if we do this, which I'll support you 100%. If we do this, is this going to allow you to do what you believe God is calling you to do? And every time I'd be like, no, I can't. She goes, well, just be patient. Well, some of the folks here know me a little better than most, but I'm not a really patient person at all. So telling me to wait is difficult, but I did. And so through the course of time, along about 2004, I was serving on the personnel committee, staff parish committee, PPR committee, whatever letters, name is used, but at Springfield Methodist. At the time, we had a part-time children's director, and she needed to resign and do some other things. And so we were without a children's director. And so this is where I tell people God has a sense of humor. I worked with big people all my life, high school students, middle school students. I never worked with the Rugrats. That was my wife's job. And so after about 2 months had passed, we hadn't had any luck finding a children's director. And it's like God said, you're the one. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck? So I began to talk to my wife, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm supposed to take this job. She goes, okay, that's fine. So I went and talked to our pastor, and he says, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. You do it part-time, you can still teach and that kind of stuff. So I did, started in 2004 part-time as children's director at Springfield Methodist. Any children's people? All right. Bless your heart. Bless you. I know Mike did. Bless your heart. And started off in children's ministry. I had a great time. So started off part-time, was still teaching. The new year rolls around, and about the time things were changing, the church approached me and said, hey, what would you think about coming on full-time? I'm like, I hadn't given it any thought. They're like, we would really like for you to come on staff full-time. I'm like, that means I have to quit my teaching. They're like, absolutely. They said, what will it take? And so we talked and all that. And we're like, okay, no problem. So the administrative board met, approved me. I was hired full-time. So I was hired full-time, but I wasn't supposed to start till June because I was still teaching. So I ended my teaching career in that year on May 23rd. June 1st, I was full-time children's minister. So one of the things I said was, man, this is awesome. They're paying me to play. They're paying me to play with kids. What better job can you have? I get paid to play. And so in the process, all that, one of the things I always told our pastor was, look, I respect you for what you do. Just, I'll try to do the very best I can, but don't ask me to do any of that stuff you do. Because that's not where I'm being led. That's not where I'm not being called to be a pastor. I'm not going to be a pastor. And he goes, okay. So I served in that capacity for a couple of years. In about 2007, I kind of began to feel this little nudge or itch. And I went to him and I'm like, okay, what do you know that I don't know? He said, what do you mean? I said, there's just something that's pushing me to do more than children's ministry. He goes, you mean like pastoral ministry? I'm like, damn it. I'm like, yes. He goes, all right, well, this is how we get started. So really quick, 2007, I entered the candidacy process. I was approved by the church, went to license to preach school, applied for seminary, started seminary in 2008, served as a local pastor, was appointed at Springfield Methodist, went to Asbury down in Orlando, graduated in 2012, and I was ordained in 2016. So a lot has changed in my life from the time I said yes to God initially in 2001 to now, 2019. Wow, that just hit me 18 years ago. To thinking that I was just trying to be obedient to God, and I never, ever saw this. Never saw myself in pastor mode. You remember those tests you took in school and said, check what you think you might be? Pastor was not even on the page they gave me. But one of the things I've discovered is that when you're obedient, I'm not saying that I always get it right, but when you at least say yes and you have a willingness to be used by God, God can do things in your life that are just remarkable. I had wonderful experience. I was involved in a lot of kids' lives, and now I'm marrying them, and they're having kids, and it makes me feel old. But I had a lot of great experiences in teaching and coaching. Wouldn't trade it for the world. But what I do now, especially I'm grateful for Ann, and let me talk about pastoral care, is I get to be with people in the highest of high moments in their lives. And unfortunately, sometimes the absolute most difficult moments. And God uses us to minister to them. And what a high and holy privilege to be able to be with people in those moments. As we'll talk through today, I've been with families at the hospital when they welcomed the baby into the world, taking that same baby and baptized it. I've welcomed people into the life of the church. I've been with people on their sick bed. I've been with the family when life leaves a loved one's body. But it is a tremendous privilege. It's difficult, and you sometimes don't have the words, but it's a privilege to be used by God in that way. So that's kind of my story. The interesting thing, I've only served as the pastor at one church, and I'm still at it, at Goshen United Methodist Church. There were some folks here at the chapel in the last year that I had the great privilege to work with. I also served for a short time, kind of in a cooperative parish role as the pastor of the chapel Effingham. So I got to work with Ann and Jay and a lot of these folks here. So I've been all over the map. So if you got any questions later, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. Children's ministry, youth ministry, any of that stuff. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. All right, let's jump in real quick. So today we're going to talk about caring, starting off caring for the congregation. So one of the things that I find, at least for me early on, that I struggle with, and I think someone sort of alluded to it, is the biggest lesson that I've had to learn as a pastor or pastoral care is I can't make choices for people. I can't make choices for people. And the reality is I can't fix every problem. I just can't. So sometimes I go into situations, and you've been in situations before, you want the right words to say, you want to do the right thing, but sometimes there are no words and there's no action that's going to be right. So what do? So one of the things we do as ministers is we practice this. It's called the ministry of presence. Everybody understand what that is? The ministry of presence. That's what we practice often. As a caregiver, we want to give or offer the ministry of presence. Ministry of presence means you don't have to have the right words. You don't have to do the right thing. Sometimes it is you just being there physically. So I'll share a story with you real quick about the ministry of presence. And then there's a little activity that I'm going to get you with. When I started in 2005 in ministry, our senior pastor had not had a vacation in a couple of years. And he said, all right, you're on full time. I feel confident leaving with things with you for a week. I'm going on vacation. No problem. So this happened first part of the month he left. So I was at the office one day and we get a phone call. And there's been an accident. I'm like, and what do? I mean, I've literally only been serving for a few days. So we get a phone call, there's been an accident and it involves a child. A young child, probably about 3-4 years old, had fallen into a pool and was unresponsive and had been transported by ambulance to the hospital. And they needed someone there. Our pastor's out of town, he's on vacation, I'm the next person in line. And so I drive the short distance from Springfield Methodist to Effingham Hospital, which is maybe 1.5 miles. And the whole way there, I'm like, God, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know anything. And so we get there, and I let the folks up front know who I am and the church I'm with. They lead me to the back where the family is. And I'm literally just standing in a hallway, watching people kind of go and do, family members back and forth. And I'm just standing there. I don't say a word. One, I'm clueless. I have no training, nothing. I'm just standing there. And so one of the things I find interesting, and I'm not being critical, but sometimes in difficult situations, people say things because they feel like that's just what we do. We have to say something. I have to offer a word. And sometimes when we say things that do more harm than good. And so I'll never forget this. And again, not trying to be critical, but just sometimes people say things because they think it's comfortable. And so I'm standing outside, and I'm standing beside the dad who's just outside, and we're standing there. And it's not very long that we get the news that the little boy had passed. And I'm trying to comfort the dad the best way I know how. I'm about to lose it, about to break down, because I can't even imagine what he's dealing with. And so he's standing there, we're just kind of, his mother, I believe, walks out, and she's trying to comfort him, and she says these words, well, God just needed an angel. And I was like, holy cow, I cannot believe she just said that. And he lit in her. I mean, just lit her up. God can't have him. I want him back. And so I learned a valuable lesson that day. Not that I did everything right, and I understand her heart. She wanted to comfort her son. But sometimes our job is just simply to be there and to be quiet. That's the ministry of presence. We simply offer Christ to others by us just being there. I've been to funeral home, I've been to hospitals, I've been to people's homes, I've been all over the place when there's a need. And sometimes I don't utter a word. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But what I receive back is folks go, look, I know you went, and we know you were there, and we're grateful. Sometimes folks just need to know that their pastor is close by. He doesn't have to say anything, he doesn't have to do it. They just want their pastor. We offer Jesus when we do. So we have a little activity. At your table is a stack of cards and I think some little pieces of paper with some descriptions on it. Right, so on the, I want you to take an index card and flip it over on the back. And on the back, take a minute or two to write down examples of ways you can provide a ministry of presence to some of these folks on the little pieces of paper. There's a preschool teacher, a bank president, a coffee shop owner, a high school soccer player, a first grader, a truck driver, a college student, a retired military. And so when you're thinking about how you provide the ministry of presence, I want you to think about a few things. One is service. What is something you can do? Or an outreach project. Listening. How many of y'all are great listeners? Good. There's only a few of us. Most of us are good talkers, right? But listen, have conversation. You can offer the ministry of presence through events, special gatherings that you can invite people to, or in times of need, difficult seasons in a person's life. So you got service, outreach projects, listening, events, and times of need. So we'll give you a few minutes to work through that. How can you offer the ministry of presence to a couple of those folks?
Solo activity or group activity?
Individually. Yeah, individually. If you forgot those examples, they're on the board. Right? Think about this question. What are the benefits of spending time with people in your congregation? Thinking about this kind of activity, but also thinking about what are the benefits of spending time with people from your congregation?
Gain their trust.
All right, good. Gain their trust. Trust, here's the thing. I didn't understand this, but have learned it immediately. When you're serving as pastor and lay ministry position, when you step into the pulpit, there is an automatic trust that comes with that, just by position. Someone else has trusted you to be in that position. So the folks who you're ministering to, they automatically trust you on some level. Now, the depth of that trust depends on you and the way that you minister to them, but they automatically trust you. And what you do to build that trust and to deepen it is crucial, because we know how it is with trust, right? It's a powerful thing, but when it's broken, it takes a long, long time to reestablish. So good, we develop trust. What else? What are some other benefits?
Can help them grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
The more you know them, the better you can understand and where they need to be discipled and to grow.
Yeah, you become an influence in their lives. And to be honest with you, they will seek that out. Some of them will desire that. They want you to pour into their lives. Right? Very good. We become an influence. I think back to some of the children that I worked with through the years. My wife reminded me the other day, there was a little boy who was in our children's ministry. He was probably, 2 years old when their family came. He's now a freshman in high school. He just made the baseball team. I went, good gosh. I'm thinking, holy cow. But there are others that I still have a relationship with because they were in children's ministry. And I did have some influence on their lives, and I'm still connected with them. Some of them have called me, hey, Mr. Chance, will you do our wedding? I'm like, wait a minute, you were just in children's ministry. So yeah, absolutely have an influence in their lives. But that comes from building trust. We establish that trust, and then they allow us to be an influence in life. Great. What else?
And the opposite's also true, is you become allowed to be influenced.
Oh, good. Good.
You find out about potential problems in the church and take care of them before they become a big deal.
Yeah. Very good. Because y'all are probably blessed in your churches, you don't have any of those problems. So y'all are nipping them in the bud right away, right? Good. All right. What else?
They know you care. They know you care.
It's been said, y'all probably heard it, it's a cliche statement. Folks could care less about how much you know until they know how much you care. I've heard it said from a number of ministers who've been, folks will overlook bad preaching, but they will not overlook bad pastoral care. If they know that you care about them, maybe the preaching or some other things aren't the best in the world, they'll kind of overlook that. But if the pastoral care is not being attended to, it's not a good fit. So, yeah, very good. All right, anything else?
Outreach.
Outreach, yeah. We have an opportunity to be in service and reach out to others, make a difference, not only in the lives of the people in the church, but outside the church, and influence it and kind of push or gently nudge or sometimes just kick and shove into areas where folks need to be.
Well, I also think that like hospital ministry and things like this, you don't realize who you're influencing. You may be there to see this patient or that patient or whoever, but if you're always in the hospital, you're also influencing those doctors, those nurses, the staff, the support staff who are there because they see your presence and they see how much you care for your for your congregation, and that influences them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing, one of the great stuff. One I want to just share is basic. Is this? You get love on people. You just get love on people. What a tremendous privilege. sometimes in the difficult moments where they may not recognize that. I feel like they're deserving of that, but you just get to love on people. Okay, good. So those are ways that we can love. Think about loving people and caring for people in this way. How do you feel, or what do you think, or what do you do if you don't have time to care for every need in the church? Say that again. Good. How many of you are great delegators? You notice my hand's not raised.
My hand's not.
Nick is in our church at Goshen. He's actually our lay leader, and he's on our personnel committee. And he knows this because he's like some of the others have fussed at me numerous times. You have to let people know. You have to let people do. Yes, and I'm still learning, right? But you have to. We cannot do everything. It's just impossible. Now, I know sometimes, and especially if you're on staff at a church, or if you're serving a church, you're the one getting paid to do those jobs, and the mentality of everybody else is, well, we're paying you to do that. But that's not how it works. So our job is to equip people. There are some folks, Nick's one of them, and there are a couple other folks in our church who I know if I am in a tight and I needed someone to go somewhere right away, maybe I'm out of town. And this happened when I was in seminary and some other situations. We had some crisis moments in the church, and there was no way that I could get there. And I called some of these folks and said, look, I just need you to be there as a representative of the church. And they were there. So you can't do it all. So we empower other people, which goes back to spending time with them. Learn how to trust, learn how to influence, learn how to guide and teach and shape. And then we empower them and send them out to do. All right? Very good. All right. So some tips to keep in mind. I think in your handout, you got a few things there listed. There are 4 things that I want you to be aware of. The first one is this: avoid the savior complex. So I was like anybody else when I graduated from seminary. I think it just comes with the territory. I'm going to graduate seminary. I'm going to go serve a church. I'm going to turn the world upside down. I'm going to fix everything. And I learned very quickly that when I got to where I am now, things were really broken, and I couldn't fix it right away. I can't make choices for people. The only thing I can do is spend time with them, influence them, and love. Well, that's all I can do. You can't fix everything. There may be times where you really don't have the expertise to do things. So I have people come to see me and want to spend time in counseling. And I tell people up front, I have some counseling training, but I am by no means an expert or am I licensed or trained to do that. My philosophy is, because of my training, I'll spend 3 sessions with you. After that, I'm going to refer you to a professional. And it's even been, I may spend 1 session with you and go, okay, this is beyond my expertise. I'm going to refer them right away. Again, as the pastor, we're looked upon as the experts. So people come to us with questions. They ask us the questions. You know why? Because we have the answers, or we're supposed to. And I tell our folks all the time, look, I'm not too proud to say, I don't have a clue. I don't know the answer to that question. That's hard because we're supposed to know. But in caring for people, I think for me personally, sometimes the best care that I can offer is to be honest with them. Go, look, I don't have an answer. I don't understand this. I don't know why this is happening. But together we're going to walk through this. So you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to be the savior. There's only one of those. We work alongside of him. Okay? All right. Secondly, keep confidences. That's pretty cut and dry. If people find out that you break their confidence, your trust in you is diminished, because that's going to get out. If you don't think people talk in the church, you're sadly mistaken. And if you don't think they talk about you, you are really sadly mistaken. And your practices and how you do things. So it's either going to be in a positive light or a negative light. Just keep confidence. At Goshen, I have an open door policy. I tell folks, if I'm there and you need to stop in, come on by. It's only been a few occasions where I've been tied up and I couldn't get with someone. You come in and talk, and I tell them, look, these four walls, safe space, whatever you need to say, it stays here. I don't take it home with me. My wife's a counselor. I don't go home and share stuff with her about what I've talked about with a parishioner or someone else. None of her business. Just like she doesn't share with me what she talks about with students. You have to keep confidence. It is so important because sometimes people have worked really, really hard to get to a place where they're willing to offer things that are really deep and really personal. And to know that that's been broken because you shared it or you gossiped about it just crushes it. And it crushes in them their understanding of who God is. It's not about just trusting us. They're like, wait a minute, that's the person who represents God to me, and I can't trust him, so it means I probably can't trust God. So it does a lot of damage. So keep confidence. Third thing, know when not to visit. Know when not to visit. Okay? And this is more about individual. Jay, who I know has taught a class, he used this example when I was in some meetings with him. He drew on a board like a bucket, and he showed the bucket that was poured out, everything in it. And he says, so often in ministry, we try to operate from an empty bucket because we've got demands on us and time, and we're busy, and we've got to be here and there, everywhere. And so often we operate out of an empty bucket. And when we operate out of an empty bucket, guess what we're given? It's not very good. It's not very life-giving. So what we have to do is when we're not in a good place, we need to not try to minister to people from that difficult place. We need to make sure that our bucket is full and that we can fill and live into their lives and minister into their lives out of the overflow and the excess and being from a good place. If I'm down or I'm tired or I'm sick or I'm just in a tough spot, it's difficult to minister to people. Oftentimes we can do more damage than we can good. We might lead them in a direction that might be harmful instead of helpful. Right?
Is it also true that you shouldn't try to minister to someone when it's bad for them?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got some parishioners, some folks that need Christ. But Saturday night, after they've been out honky talking half the day, ain't the time to go talk to them.
Right. So what do you do in those situations? That's a great example. And it's not just that, but it's other things. There are folks that you know you need to minister to, but man, it's just not a good moment. So there's everybody else in the church that's going to have their own ideas or make their own assumptions about Joe or Tom or Mary or whoever that needs Jesus. So what do you do? Goes back to what I said earlier. You just love them. That's how you minister to them. You love them. Yeah, you know they've been out all night and they show up to worship on Sunday and they probably don't look the best and they may smell of some leftover indulgence. That's okay. You love them. The last thing they need to do is, or we need to do, is remind them of the mistakes or the struggles they're having. Just love them. And there will be an opportunity to minister to them when it's appropriate. All right, great question. Great thought. All right. The last one is the one I think so often, Ann mentioned it earlier, I think it gets often